The night air clung to the cracked asphalt like damp breath, thick with the smell of pine from the endless black wall of woods that pressed against the Walmart side lot. I had made this ritual sacred for months. Domino's cheesy bread, still steaming in its greasy cardboard coffin, parked in the farthest, emptiest corner, where the sodium lights barely reached. No kids screaming, no carts rattling, no headlights, just me, warm cheese, and the low hum of crickets. That night, the bread was heavy with mozzarella strings that burned my fingers. I was 4 bites in, marinara dripping onto my jeans, savoring the silence. The world outside the windshield felt miles away, a distant hum that could not touch this small, illuminated space. I leaned back, the seat creaking under my weight, and let the steam rise against the glass. It was a perfect, isolated pocket of time. I chewed slowly, tracking the rhythmic pulse of the crickets, convinced that this corner of the lot belonged only to me. The bread was hot, the night was still, and the darkness beyond the sodium lights felt like a protective barrier. I reached for another piece, completely unaware that the silence was about to be broken. The rhythm of the night shifted. A low rumble of an engine vibrated through the asphalt, cutting through the crickets. I looked up, expecting a late shift employee or a stray shopper, but the lot remained empty. Then, a vehicle emerged from the shadows. It was an old truck, matte black, devoid of any reflective surface or chrome trim. It moved with a heavy, deliberate crawl, tires crunching slowly over the gravel. It did not park in a standard spot, but slid into a space 3 rows over, perfectly centered. The engine cut out instantly, leaving a silence that felt heavier than before. I squinted through my windshield. The truck's windows were clear, like glass tanks. Inside, a man sat behind the wheel. His hands rested flat on his thighs. He did not reach for a phone, did not adjust his seat, and did not glance around. He stared straight ahead, fixed on the void. I watched him for a long moment, waiting for a sign of life, but he remained a statue. The stillness was absolute. I told myself he was just a driver killing time, waiting for a wife or a child to finish a shift inside the store. It was a logical thought, a way to anchor my mind back to the mundane. I gripped my bread, forcing myself to take another bite, but the cheese had gone cold and rubbery. The marinara sauce now tasted like ash, coating my tongue with a bitter, metallic film. I checked my watch. 5 minutes had crawled by. Then 7. Then 10. The man in the matte black truck had not shifted an inch. He did not scratch his nose, did not reach for a radio, and did not blink. His posture remained locked, a rigid silhouette against the dim sodium light. I tried to match his stare, tracing the line of his gaze across the empty lot to a single commercial semi-parked under a dying bulb. There was nothing there to look at. My pulse began to thud, a dull, rhythmic beat behind my eyes. Something was wrong, and the stillness in that truck was not human. Then, the tapping, sharp, deliberate, knuckles on glass. I jerked so hard, the box of bread flew onto the passenger seat, scattering grease across the upholstery. He was there, outside my driver door. I had not heard footsteps. I had not seen headlights flare, or a door swing open. 1 second the lot was empty. The next, he was inches from me. His face was pale and waxy under the distant sodium light, his pupils so dilated they seemed to eat his irises. I froze, my hand hovering over the door lock. He tapped again, slower this time, almost patient. My hand shook as I cracked the window an inch, the rubber seal groaning in the silence. He did not speak. His left hand began to move, not waving, but scratching. Fast, frantic digs at his forearm, his neck, his ribs through his thin shirt. It looked like something was crawling under his skin. The sound was wet, the rhythmic scrape of fingernails raking flesh. I saw thin red lines blooming on his skin, raw and angry. He did not look at me. He just kept digging. I forced my voice to work, though it felt like sandpaper in my throat. "Hey, "You okay, man?" The words died in the air. He stopped scratching. His right hand, hidden until that moment, swung forward with terrifying speed. A pistol, small, black, matte, like his truck. He pressed the barrel against the bottom edge of my half-open window. The muzzle kissed the glass, smelling of faint, sharp gun oil. The front sight lined up perfectly with my chest. Time shattered. The world narrowed down to that cold circle of steel. My brain screamed a single command. I slammed the window button while my right foot stabbed the reverse pedal. The motor was already idling. Tires shrieked against the asphalt. My truck lurched backward, throwing me against the seat. He lunged, trying to shove the weapon through the shrinking gap. Metal scraped glass with a high-pitched, agonizing whine. I heard the wet smack of his palm slapping my door as I threw the gear into drive. The main road was a blur of red taillights and blurred street signs. I blew through a yellow light, the intersection flashing past like a strobe. In the rearview mirror, his high beams stabbed through the dark like knives, closing the distance with terrifying speed. He was not playing. He wanted me stopped. I yanked the wheel hard to the left, swerving into the empty lane to shake him, but he was a shadow glued to my bumper. Every twitch of my steering wheel, he mirrored. Every acceleration, he matched. The road ahead stretched out, dark and unforgiving. I checked the mirror again. Those lights were still there, brighter now, burning into my vision. He was close enough that I could see the silhouette of his head, unnaturally still, even while driving like a missile. If I braked, he would ram me. If I sped up, he would stay locked on. The engine began to whine, a high, strained pitch that vibrated through the floorboards. I pushed the pedal deeper, the needle climbing, but he did not fall back. He was waiting. He was hunting. The night air rushed past the windows, cold and biting, but sweat stung my eyes. There was nowhere to turn. I swerved into the center lane, my eyes darting frantically around the cabin. I needed help. I needed a signal. My right hand lunged for the glove box, fingers clawing at the plastic latch. Nothing. I ripped open the center console, tossing aside loose change and crumpled receipts. My phone. Where was my phone? My fingers brushed the cold, dead glass, tucked under a map. I snatched it up, thumbing the power button. The screen remained black. A cold spike of dread pierced my chest. It had died at work. I was completely cut off. No signal, no help, just the road and the man behind me. I slammed the console shut and gripped the wheel until my knuckles turned white. The speedometer needle climbed 65, 70, 80. The engine screamed in protest, a high, mechanical shriek that filled the cabin. I was pushing the truck to its absolute limit, the chassis rattling against the pavement. The police station was 10 minutes away, a lifetime at this speed. He stayed locked on my bumper, his high beams blinding, his truck a silent, relentless predator. I kept the pedal buried, praying the engine would hold together. The station was a blur of distant blue and red lights on the horizon. I was 3 miles out, my foot locked to the floor, when I saw the turn for Cypress Road. I flicked the blinker, a desperate, rhythmic clicking that sounded deafening in the silence of the cab. I braced for the impact, expecting him to ram me into the ditch as I slowed. Instead, his headlights snapped left. He didn't follow. He didn't hesitate. He peeled off into the mouth of a dark side street, vanishing into the gloom like smoke caught in a draft. The pressure on my bumper evaporated instantly. I didn't slow down. I didn't breathe. I kept the pedal buried until the station lot loomed ahead. I yanked the wheel, the tires screaming against the asphalt, and skidded into the empty space beneath the floodlights. The truck groaned, metal ticking as it cooled. I killed the engine. The silence that followed was heavy, absolute, and terrifying. My hands were locked onto the steering wheel, shaking so violently that the entire dash rattled. I sat there, gasping for air, waiting for the headlights to reappear. The police report was just a stack of paper. They took my statement, scribbled notes about a truck I never saw clearly, and searched the area for hours. They found nothing. No tire tracks, no witnesses, no black truck. The case went cold before the ink on the report was dry. Time moved forward, but I stayed stuck in that parking lot. The smell of warm bread now triggers a physical recoil in my gut. I do not park in empty lots anymore. I avoid the dark corners of the world, keeping my truck under the brightest floodlights I can find. My phone is always charged, a lifeline I check obsessively, terrified of being cut off again. I still see his face when I close my eyes, that pale, waxy skin, and those pupils that seem to swallow the light. I hear the sound of his knuckles on the glass, a slow, patient, rhythmic tapping that echoes in the quietest hours of the night. Sometimes, when the road is long and the darkness presses against my windshield, I catch myself glancing at the rearview mirror. I am looking for a matte black truck that never quite disappears. It is a ghost in the periphery, a reminder that some threats do not end when the engine stops. I drive on, but the fear remains, a passenger that never leaves.